Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. It's been a while, but we are here. We kind of had a show 2 weeks ago when we had the interview with then interim manager, now full-time manager of Pittsburgh Riverhounds, Rob Vincent. But since then, we went on a little holiday break, and you would think we would do the same thing as we are just a couple of hours away from going into 2026. But are we going into having a USL Championship season at all? We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But before we do, John, how are you?
Doing really well. I think this might be the longest I've gone without podcasting in like 3 years.
Don't get too used to it.
Yeah.
USL news is going to start happening again. So maybe. Ryan, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. I had a short vacation with the family to Las Vegas where I just packed in so much stuff. But I guess one random highlight was I found a Denny's combination with a liquor store, and I was just like, this has to be a first, and like the only city in the world that could possibly have this.
That rocks. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah,
So
really only Las Vegas, right?
before we get into all the news, we want to go ahead and thank Doug Brooks, Stephen Howard, John's Landlord, Don Garber, David Horn, Josh, Dylan Reed, Sandy Lester, Ryan Smeltzer, Matt Caphill, Andrew Towsley, Alva Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Fresh 30, Intel Knox, Rion Lacara, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, and John Hunt. Thank you guys so much. And if you are a paid patron, you would have seen something that I put there recently. And actually, I don't even think John and Ryan know anything about this. So here we go. New kit coming with Equip Studios. And I wanted to go ahead and let you know, Sash of Champions. So if your team has won a championship in 2025, be on the lookout because you're going to want to buy this one. It's a ton of fun. I think you'll enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get into why we're here, what the name of this podcast is, why the cheaply put together Canva thumbnail was. It's official. I mean, it's going to be official, but it's official. We are locked out in the USL Championship. Granted, we are technically 3 hours away from the lockout beginning, but as we know, the final bargaining happened just yesterday, and they're not planning to reconvene until January 8th. So, by all intents and purposes, we are locked out. John, besides what this actually means, the words USL Championship locked out, how big of a PR punch is this?
So I do need to start by being pedantic because per what Connor Tobin was saying on Morning Kick Around, shout out to the friends over there this morning, technically there will be a continuation of the current CBA until one side or another says, hey, players aren't going to do it. That's a strike. League doesn't want to do it. That's a lockout. But for all intents and purposes, the CBA is up ahead of a year that was supposed to be the moment of growth for the USL. It is the World Cup coming to America, ostensibly a time when support for the sport and interest in the sport is going to be peaking, and a way for communities, particularly USL communities, to really leverage that possibility of getting new fans. We are on the precipice of Pro-Rel, of D1, and the need to ramp up for that, both in terms of the continuity of playing games and keeping fan support in cities, but also operationally, what all of that is going to mean. Now we're facing down a situation where I don't necessarily know if the season is fully at risk yet, but it is becoming a possibility that we might see delays. That is a huge deal for the future of the league. And for the players, it's an important stand to be taking. They want to be able to live and play in the USL. For me, that is not an outrageous demand. If you are somebody who's making $26,000 without guaranteed employer health insurance, I don't know what to tell you. That is not possible anywhere in America. So yeah, the PA is doing what they see to be just, which I think a lot of people would agree with. And it creates an interesting conundrum as we head into the new year.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? Just kind of talking surface level right now.
Yeah, and we've seen it recently, and I think you put it into our Discord chat talking about the ECHL going through kind of a similar situation recently as well. But this just seems like a really unnecessary, I guess, black eye for USL as you're entering into such a crucial year to basically say, hey, we're not playing this season, and due to disagreements that really shouldn't be disagreements in the first place. The players need to have health care to live and want to who earn a living in this country to play in this league. And I would argue all the USLPA, I guess, positions here are just and should be fairly compensated for their labor.
Yeah, and I do hate that we have these conversations, and the few times that we get to reference, hey, we're talking about stuff that the USL is being mentioned on The Athletic. It's either pro rel or people aren't being paid. Like that's there's no in between when it comes to coverage on there. But we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit where they talked to Joe Farrell, where I think more than anything else that I have seen recently has been one of the most damning articles that has released. And I kind of hate that it's behind a paywall because I think a lot of people need to hear it. And so we'll talk about it a little bit. But of course, if you have The Athletic, it's not that expensive, and go support what was it Anzidai? Anzidai? I can't remember how to pronounce Melanie's last name, but she did an amazing job with that. But John, when we're talking about this lockout, there was a really important distinction mentioned in the USLPA statement, which you have talked about before with Backfield, which you and I had talked to other people when we were down in Tulsa, which is this is not a league. This is not bargaining with the league necessarily. This is bargaining with the owners, which feels like it should be the same thing because when you talk about the NFL, when you talk about MLB, NHL, the owners are the league, but it's not really the same thing here.
Yeah, and it becomes complicated on two fronts. In terms of the negotiation itself and the logistics behind that, you need to have Paul McDonough, the head of the championship, and the entities behind USL headquarters in the room. Then you also have the owners in the room. Then the PA is there. Versus if you were talking about the NFL, Roger Goodell works for the owners. He is an employee of them. Anything he does is essentially their bidding. That, for all intents and purposes, is one party, and the players are one party. So it is a one-on-one negotiation. Here, there are just different financial interests because of the way the USL is set up as an organization. So USL HQ, when there's an expansion team coming in, they get $25, $30 million at the championship level. That revenue isn't shared back to the clubs. Each year from CBS and ESPN, the league gets $7, $8 million, I think is the generally agreed consensus. That's not going to the teams. That stays in Tampa Bay. So what that creates for the clubs is more financial pressure because you're losing out on revenue streams that every other organization in professional sports in the United States would typically be getting. So then you get to the players who have this complicated negotiation. They are playing for clubs that are poorer in the first place because of the way it is all structured. So the clubs can struggle to play the players. USL HQ keeps the money, and then it is messy because the owners tend to align with the league in negotiations, but not entirely. And you can see then it's a rat's nest. It's hard to work through. From what I understand, there really isn't the specter of changing that structure on the table in this negotiation. So you're set with this very calcified way of doing things that is harmful to the players.
Ryan, when you're kind of hearing stuff like this, where like people in a lot of these closed systems, and I don't want to use all the buzzwords that kind of get me famous on Twitter or something, but in these closed systems, you hear about revenue sharing and everybody just kind of circles around and all that money stays in house. But now the money stays in one house, but doesn't get shared with the neighborhood. Does that sound concerning for you?
I would think for the long-term entity of the league, yes. I mean, you look at something like MLB that does have revenue sharing between their teams. Obviously, a lot of the rich clubs of the league, your Yankees, your Dodgers, aren't really, I guess, always thrilled to have to share the money with, say, the Pirates or the Reds of the world, but they see it as a necessary, I guess, part of, I guess, raising the tide for all ships in the league. And it is kind of surprising within USL that something that like having $30 million to have from an expansion that could go to paying a lot of the other teams within the league to possibly cover healthcare and other things that could go for player well-being just isn't outright being shared and kind of leaves a lot of the teams to kind of just fend for themselves. Yeah, I think that does kind of raise some eyebrows and has some pause for any team that might enter the league or any team that's currently in the league about looking at expenses moving forward.
John, I need you to correct me on this. I just want to make sure that I am right here. The USL is primarily held through private stuff is through New Rock, correct? New Rock Holdings.
Yeah, so New Rock Holdings essentially is the Papadakis family, which is a familiar name for long-term fans of the USL, as well as a guy named Rob Hoskins. This year, we also saw private equity Bell Tower Partners come into the scene. So the league office has considerable operations, right? Like they're doing things, and New Rock essentially are doing things with the money they take in. But they also turned a $14 million profit according to their 2024 financials. That is money that can get reinvested and help for growth, will probably help to go towards things like D1 compliance. But at the same time, like the Papadakis family has a written 50% profit share. So 7 million of those dollars are the Papadakis to do what they want with. So if you think about why is the league not sending the money back to the clubs? Because there are people and families who can be wealthy by just sitting in Tampa Bay and doing very valuable things for the growth of soccer, but that don't trickle down to the clubs necessarily.
And, you know, the reason why like this New Rock came in is because and I always get the abbreviation messed up. USIS, the one that was before the USL.
Yeah.
It was like two more letters, and both of them are I's, and I don't remember what
you had it. You had it. I think USISL, unless I'm dyslexic.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, make sure I was good there. They were originally owned by Nike. And then Nike was like, this is a waste of our money. We're putting this up for sale. And then that's when New Rock came in and it kind of became USL Pro and then USL Championship and stuff like that. So if you are someone who's kind of new to the scene, it's like, why is it called r/USL Pro? That kind of happened in that transition. And then it became Championship, League One, League Two, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's kind of get into what this means or what the players are kind of fighting for, which maybe we should have talked about that from the beginning. But I feel like if you're listening to the show, you're kind of already in deep enough that you know about it. But let's kind of hit the main talking points. It's a better base salary, a higher base salary. They want year-long contracts. They're on 10-month contracts, but they want 12-month contracts. They want to have guaranteed contracts. So if someone decides to shut shop, North Carolina, they would be guaranteed to get their payment. And then insurance. That's really what they're asking for. And so when you read the Athletic article, the one line that is just really damning here, and I'm going to post it again in our chat, and I got to find it because I was trying to look at something else. He was talking about Joe Farrell talks about why he retired despite having offers. He said he had standing offers from USL Championship clubs, but he said that he was behind while a lot of his friends they went to college with had built up 401ks and retirements and had built up families and houses to live in. He didn't have any of that. He had basically none of that built up. He was 31 years old and essentially behind. That was something that was really shocking to me. And it's something that we've known, but when you have it said like that of me, someone living my dream is behind all of our friends, he said Farrell sometimes went years without health coverage, lived in an apartment with roommates. his health coverage relied on whether the team he played for offered it or not. We want to be treated as professionals, and that comes along with healthcare, and that comes along with competitive salaries. We're not aspiring for millions; we're aspiring for a nice apartment.
And it's kind of useful to dig into the healthcare and salary examples in a little bit more detail. And the USLPA put out a fascinating and really well-argued open letter about the situation. Last season in the championship, about a quarter of the player pool made less than $35,000 before tax. If you think about health insurance, a quarter of the players were not even offered any employer health insurance. Now, I've also heard that what you can get from teams varies greatly across the league. Certain organizations doing really well. Other clubs have deductibles way up in the thousands that are really not even worth taking. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in this, go check out the video that Jake Keegan and Sean Vinberg did, where they dig into insurance a little bit more in the context of League One, because it's the same story of what these clubs are offering often isn't really worth taking for players. So you contextualize the fact that these guys are living below the poverty line almost, without the protections you would expect in terms of those benefits. It makes sense that somebody like Joey Farrell, who has been an exceptional player in the USL for nearly a decade at this point, I believe that he's fallen behind. He has made a sacrifice to play a sport he cares about in an industry that I think people, common fans, can maybe misunderstand to be pretty lucrative. You think about pro sports, you think about players making millions of dollars. That's not the case. It's a struggle, it's a sacrifice, and so this fight is really meaningful for the players.
Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, just reading this open letter, it was just like really eye-opening on just how much the league has been impacted from this. And it really, I think, strengthens their case as well, just to kind of show that they're asking just for being able to live and play the sport that we all love and just like live out their dreams. And the fact that the league is like really dragging their feet on just standards that should be set for a professional league. It's certainly a professional league that has ambitions to be D1, and they're not doing the base level that's just being required of them to take care of their players is just incredibly disheartening.
And I don't remember if this was Eric Dick or if this was the Joe Farrell, once again, in the Athletic article, but there was a lot of conversation about the owners. Let's get this right. The owners are going to cry poor. Now, I want to let this be known as well. This is not all owners. So before we start saying league bad, we're talking about 4 or 5 sets of ownership groups. We're not talking about, there are 30 teams or however many teams are in the USL now. Is it 24? I don't know.
25 as of
25 in the room right now, and all 25 are saying kick rocks players will find some scabs. It's about 4 or 5 teams that are dragging their feet because they have made their living off of being towards the bottom in things, and they have been successful in doing so and through various degrees. And that's what we're kind of looking at. But he kind of talked about, whichever one it was, Eric Dick or Joe Farrell, of if this was unsuccessful, if this was not worth the money of paying the players more, then they wouldn't be mindlessly expanding. Like, you would not be mindlessly expanding into new places and selling places on new things if this was an unsuccessful group.
Yeah, and it was the Eric Dick tweet, I believe, where it's a screenshot of the USL calling itself like one of the biggest lower leagues on the planet and saying, well, if that's the case, why are you not paying us? Which, yeah, he is right. And I do need to caveat the fact that these guys are losing a lot of money, like on the ownership side. There's no two ways around that. When I interviewed Sean Mann, who's with Detroit City, for that piece about the league structure and the way that headquarters keeps money, he flat out said they're losing $3-4 million a year. and that puts them in the top 20% of clubs for profitability. That makes it hard to say, yes, we're going to give the players more. Now, is it worthwhile? Is it something that you want to invest in to improve this product and really secure your future? Of course. And I think that's why the majority of ownership is going to be on board with this when push comes to shove. But it makes it, again, I keep underlining, there are so many points here that make this a really difficult deal to get over the line. And that's yet another of them.
And for people who are podcast only, the quote from Eric Dick says players are asking, quote unquote, one of the most successful leagues in the world to treat them like professional athletes and provide professional standards, not rocket science, not world shattering, healthcare, fair wages, food, fair travel, facilities, etc. All pro ask. And that comes from, and I do think it's important who is sharing these sentiments. These are not guys who are bottom of the roster. These are not guys who are just kind of scraping along. This is a guy who was the face of a championship push this year. He was the guy when you say who won Pittsburgh Riverhounds the USL Championship this year. You could point to a couple midfielders, a couple defenders. Maybe you want to say someone else. But who's the first name you're going to say? It's Eric Dick. He's the one coming out there and saying that, and I think that's really important.
I mean, you think about Eric Dick or Joe Farrell, they're pushing for this because they've lived it. When Farrell came into the league with the Rochester Rhinos in 20 whatever, you can bet he was on the lower end of the salary spectrum before there were even any CBA protections. Eric Dick, I'm sure, had difficulties of his own in that same pathway. These are players who are looking out for the next generation, who understand we want whatever comes next to be financially sustainable for these guys that are committing to the sport they love.
And especially with this being a World Cup year, excuse me, when a lot more of just the world focus is going to be having its eyes on how the sport is run in the United States. If we could only say it's only viable to play the sport if you play in MLS, and anywhere outside of that, it's not viable to play at all. I feel like that's going to raise a lot of concerns from, I guess, the global community as well on, it's like, is the sport really healthy in the United States at the moment if most of the clubs in USL can't afford to, I guess, fairly pay their players?
And it's such an interesting bifurcation of the way clubs are doing things this offseason, where I don't know any numbers of what the Tampa Bay Rowdies are doing, but from the outside, it looks like they are spending a lot of money. Lexington is dropping $100,000 transfer fees for players in the league. And there are clubs that want to say, okay, cool. One transfer fee for Philip Goodrum would be 4 minimum salaries. We should just go with that. You hope that the positive momentum at the top end is going to raise all ships. But clearly there are some kind of anchor teams that want to hold back, want to really shell into the way that they're doing things right now. And it ultimately isn't sustainable for exactly what Ryan is saying, taking advantage of that World Cup moment.
You know, another side of this, and let's talk about the opposite side of Lexington, right? Where I do want to give Lexington some flowers for continuing to do the dang thing, because we could get to the end of this offseason and the funniest possible thing could happen to Lexington once again. But they continue to buy. And look at teams who we think are successful. Charleston sells what could be 2 of their best players. And you have Juan David Torres, who is apparently in negotiations to being sent on loan. That's not yet finalized, but it's certainly possible that he is going to be sent out for what could be a $400,000 transfer fee. You have Aaron Malloy, who is being sent out to Lexington for a interleague transfer fee record of over $100,000. Don't get me wrong, Charles, if you look at who is currently on Charleston's roster, it is absolutely disgusting how good this team is. They're still going to be a competitor to win it all because their roster build is that good. But look at what they did. They built up over time. They acquired a lot of really good talent, and now they can sell it on. Now they can pay for things going forward. you talked about it, John, of these teams who are doing well are losing, $4 million a year. Those are the teams that are doing well. Imagine what a $1 million transfer like a Fidel Barajas does for a club. Why would you not acquire talent, sell big on talent? And yeah, maybe you're not going for it like a Lexington, but you're doing it in a sustainable way like a Charleston.
No, absolutely. I mean, to say you spend money to make money is probably an oversimplification. But heck, I mean, when I talk to the folks at One Knox, right, they are investing on the field, but so much of their improvement in terms of attendance last season was just investing in the ticket department and getting that sort of person involved so you have the fans in the seats. There are so many ways that you need to support your organization with that capital push from the beginning. The players obviously are the thing that's in the spotlight right now, but we're at this moment for the USL where if you aren't committed to the vision, if you aren't pushing for what this is trying to be with Pro Rel, with D1, with everything, it just becomes that more difficult. You see somebody like North Carolina FC go to the side, and that is despite having a successful academy system that was surely a profit center for them. It just raises questions about the model and about the teams that aren't locked in for what this needs to be in terms of that spend.
Well, Ryan, I know you have some way fast, but I want to get this thought really fast. You talk about what North Carolina was. They just made money again off of
Sundstrom.
Finn Sundstrom. And they don't exist anymore. Yeah, they still made money off of him because the MLS is just awesome. That happened. There's other teams in this league who they are known for selling talent, and they're one of the ones that are allegedly not signing this thing because they can live at the bottom and sell for big. That's what their plan is. That's still important, though. I just think it's really interesting how this is all working. You talk about how we are looking at an important moment. You guys haven't been on since the ESPN article dropped of what's been kind of happening with the Division One CBA, which the fact that they are negotiating the Division One CBA is interesting to me. But I do think there's another side to that, and we'll get there. But they are talking already about that Division One CBA and the minimum wage being at $55,000. That's what they're kind of looking at for Division One. I do think, in tinfoil hat, putting it on, here we go. I do think this is in conjuncture of what we saw in the Athletic article where the Super League still doesn't have a CBA and they're going into their second year. They're in the middle of the second year of existence. Betsy Howe said on this very program that the Super League was going to share the USL Championship CBA when they were both Division Two, because they want to have equal divisions to have equal pay. They want the men and women to make the same money. So you would then think the same would apply Division One. So maybe this is a situation of the Super League is being negotiated as the Division One ML or USL. I don't know, but that's another part of this that we haven't really talked about yet. Is the Super League still doesn't have a CBA? The League One CBA is up in 2 years. It's all happening.
And with the D1 discussion and what was told to ESPN, that 55,000 minimum number is structured similarly as the whole compensation package that you see in the championship. So if there is health insurance, if there is housing provided, that goes into the 55,000 number and then it gets taxed. So theoretically, you really aren't looking at what is a median salary in a lot of America right now, if we're being honest. It, for the players, maybe is a bit low for what they're striving for, from what I've heard. But that feels like it is another battle down the road, a vitally important one, of course. And I'm so curious about the point you raised, Kaylor. Does that apply to Super League as well? And are we going for that level of equity? Hands up for the moment, because I think everybody's focus has to be championship.
So I want to kind of get one last thought on this because I feel like a couple more thoughts on this before we move forward. And this is where I'm going to put my hands up and call ignorance, right? Where any deals that were struck before this point are still going to be announced. So if there was a contract signed, let's call it 11:50 p.m. tonight, it will still get announced at regular. We're not saying that those players are quote unquote scabbing, right? So don't assume that any player announcements that happens after January 1st is somebody scabbing. But I also am not aware of how contract negotiations go.
So this is the point I was making about continuance, where for now, technically, all the parties agree the old CBA is still in practice. It is active. So if you're signing a deal, that's fine. That's standard procedure. And we're also going to see announcements that have been inked for a month because communications are weird this time of year. We will get to a point in January, February, where either the league or the players say, we're calling it, there's not going to be a clean resolution. Then it's a strike, then it's a lockout, and we get into the thornier labor issues. But yeah, if you see somebody signing, that is standard procedure, because I think everybody wants to be normal for as long as they can in preparation for what should be a season.
And that first game is on March 6th. I know Andy was putting into the chat on if there like the over under on if there would be a lockout or not. I'm sure it was said in jest, but I mean, it's the season starts on March 6th. You're probably going to hopefully have friendlies being played in preseason in February. So it really, there's not that much time like between now and when the season quote unquote should be beginning to get this all hammered out and decided.
So kind of final thoughts that I have on this, and we can still run with this as long as possible. And I'm sure something will come up later and I'll say, I wish I said that. But right now, the only thing I have listed in front of me is, and I've kind of mentioned this as a couple of times, we are not waiting on the league to sign this. Is not waiting on Paul McDonough to sign this and say it's over. We are realistically waiting on 4 to 5 ownership groups to sign this. So majority of the league agrees that this needs to happen, and they agree on what's being asked. It's just a couple of teams that are not willing to play ball. And the other part of this is, why isn't the league forcing their hand when it is a minority of teams that are doing this? Why would they not force their hand? And I do think that's a conversation, but I also want to ask, how would the league force their hand? Would you say, hey, any team that doesn't sign this CBA by blank date starts off with a point deduction? That doesn't really mean anything. Great. This is not, this is, by the way, this is not me saying Birmingham Legion are not one of the ones that signed this, but if Birmingham Legion started off with a 10-point deduction, that's just 2025, right? Like, what does that even mean? So what would they do? Would they say, okay, you don't want to play ball and play with higher standards, we're dropping you down to League One because that's the level that you're clearly willing to commit to? Or we're going to reject your Division One status kind of application? What can they even do to force the hands of the owners?
And I want to be specific about the way that the negotiations are going. It's less like ink to paper and more the majority of owners are actively participating and have shown a willingness to compromise. And you've got the set that are just defined by their intransigence right now. That's not to say that they won't come to the table as we get closer. But yeah, it's so hard for the league to strong arm them. And what is the incentive for that if you're the league? And it will get to the point when we approach February and the start of camps where maybe the league does have more of that kick in the butt to say, listen, we got to get something going. We can't lose games in this season. But yeah, an astute point there of there isn't any valid way that they can muscle them into signing something.
Does anybody have any final CBA thoughts or lockout, quote unquote, lockout thoughts they want to get out, whether it's just a thought or just clarification on stuff? All right. Well, I have a couple of things before we get into some pros and cons from the year, our favorite moments and least favorite moments. But they get brought up in chat, and I wish Phil was here. El Paso's alive. They eventually announced Junior Gonzalez as their new coach, which was great. And then immediately dropped that Rubio Rubin is just signing there because that's how. So El Paso's showing life.
So I think the pro column with Junior Gonzalez is that he has really good developmental experience given what he did in Next Pro and his time with Galaxy 2. He knows how to be kind of the next step from Wilmer Cabrera. He took over for him at RGV. And he's somebody that Mark Lowry really respected and thought would be the right guy to run a similar system when Lowry left El Paso. On the flip side, Gonzalez has never led a team with a positive expected goal difference. He's made the playoffs, I think, 3 out of 7 seasons, and all those teams were just negative goal difference teams. He is somebody who, in terms of the profile of manager we've seen this winter, maybe isn't the most enticing. But I think that there is a clarity to the system, in the way that he uses his wingers and forwards is going to be perfect for Armando Moreno and for Rubio Rubin. You think about the balance in the midfield with Gabby Torres and Eric Calvillo. Those are guys that are built for this system. Now, I think El Paso really needs to invest in this defense. Losing Jamali Waite, huge deal. The center backs were bad. And then they add Carl Saint, and Carl Saint is also really bad. So I don't know what's going on there. But in terms of saying, listen, Wilmer, you got us to the postseason as the 4 seed, but we think we can go further. I don't know if this is ambitious enough. I think Rubio Rubin is an A+ signing, but everything else, and especially the way it's been handled and communicated, just doesn't feel like there was a plan here.
Well, Benny Philauber was announced by the league, and then
everyone on Twitter was chill and normal about that.
Normal stuff. Ryan?
Yeah, it's always just kind of been interesting, and goes back to like where I would love to have Phil's input on this and just to hear his thoughts on this moving forward. But like El Paso, this has been kind of par for the course with El Paso and just kind of recent memory of seasons that it seems like they are very much kind of reacting to things either of their own doing or reacting in a way that just leaves us questioning on if this is the right path kind of moving forward. And credit to Cabrera for coming in and kind of really steadying the ship for when they were there. But I definitely echo John's thoughts on, it's like, okay, you've brought us to this point. Is this like worth the change? Is it like, how are we moving forward, I guess, with the next path? And it almost seemed like they got rid of Cabrera and then it caught them off guard that, hey, we need to hire someone else.
So this is just really dumb. I don't know if you guys saw where it was rumored that Chicharito was signing for FC Juarez. Basically, the mayor of Juarez just announced that Chicharito was signing for FC Juarez. And the entire time I was thinking there's a non-zero chance that Chicharito goes on loan to El Paso, and that'd be the funniest thing that could happen in this entire thing. That was just my only thought, and I just had to share that.
Around Joe Cole, Drogba, where would you put Chicharito on former, I guess, Premier League players playing in USL?
Out of pure fame, below Drogba, above Joe Cole. Out of pure impact, definitely below Joe Cole. And I think Joe Cole might have actually been the most effective of the 3.
I think Chicharito is less famous than Didier Drogba. But if you could choose like one signing that specifically the El Paso Locomotive could make to galvanize that community, I don't think you could do much better. This will not happen. I just need to throw that out there again. But man,
Yes.
I wish.
Sounds like a Football Manager article.
Yeah.
Experiment.
Oh my gosh, who was the player that signed for the Roots and then just went to TST and just never was seen again? Oh my god, who was that?
He was supposed.
Yeah, he was supposed to play for the Loyal.
It wasn't Dom Dwyer, was it?
No, it was Dom Dwyer. That was it.
Okay.
So the shades of that. Chicharito signs for El Paso, literally never plays, goes to TST and just retires.
The dream.
Or actually, Dom Dwyer's in like League One right now in England, but anyway. Sure. So let's get to some of the best and some of the worst of 2025 of favorite USL moments. And if we want to hit least favorite, I always think it's funny to see what people's least favorites are. We put this out on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Reddit, and Instagram as well. So we're going to read some of the people's. And if you're in our live chat, go ahead and drop that in there of what your thoughts were throughout the year. I can tell you, from me, my favorite moment from the season, I put this on Twitter as well, in Blue Sky, was going to the USL Championship final. Just everything that was attached to doing the final, that was attached to just being there, was just incredible. And even if you're a neutral and you're like, I don't know if I should go to this, I just think you should, just to rub elbows with all the people that are around there and just to kind of experience the pageantry of the USL Championship final. So I thought that was absolutely amazing. And for my least favorite, just to kind of throw it out there, Tommy Sohn being sacked was just really sad. It was just like, oh wow, this is the end of the first era of Birmingham Legion, and that was just kind of weird. But yeah, I constantly find myself reliving that FC Tulsa trip.
Yeah, the travel and meeting both of you in person for the first time, honestly, a total delight. And shout out Trey Higdon in the chat as well. Just getting to sit in the box with him and chilling at the final was a treat. And experiencing the community behind it all, I was able to meet a lot of people that I've only had like a virtual relationship with, like going up to Westchester and meeting the boys from Raising Anchor and all the Rhode Island fans out in Phoenix and everybody there, the Portland trip, the Tulsa trip. It's, for all of us, I think, a lot of work and a lot of attention we have to pay to this league. So when you get those moments where it becomes a little bit more real, that is just awesome. So that would be the highlight for me personally. On the downside, I think broadly at like the macro league level of things, the North Carolina news really was a stunner. That's just a team that's always been around. I know a handful of people that are there and a handful of the supporters. People cared about that as an institution. So the fact that they're just gone, it is crazy. And I know it's a hiatus or whatever. Things will be so different if they ever do come back that it hits just in a really bad way.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, my personal highlight had to be the trip up to Portland. Obviously, meeting John and Phil in person for the first time was just such an experience. Portland as a town on its own was just really cool. But what Hearts of Pine have built at Fitzpatrick Stadium is something really special. And just to be part of that atmosphere and just see everything. And the fact that we got to go and see one hell of a match, which my prediction was correct on from the preseason show, but beside the point, was just really cool. I mean, like you couldn't have asked for basically a better showcase of the Jägermeister Cup, of Portland Hearts of Pine, and just the atmosphere that they're building up there. And I guess from a more like beyond my own personal experience, Dan Creel had mentioned this on Blue Sky, but like Vermont Green's playoff run in USL 2, I think was an incredible story for USL 2. And it was just a big moment for that community, for that club. And it was just something that everyone can kind of point to and say that was a very like positive, like really wholesome victory for the club. And all of their playoff posters were really cool. But yeah, I have to echo again, John, just it really sucks whenever you have to lose a team. I know from experience from losing my own team in North Carolina that it's just even if they'll come back, it's just not ever the same as what you once had. And having known people who rooted for NCFC and just everything that they kind of built there, or like when I was watching the College Cup, the final between NC State and Washington, I know NC State was very local to the Triangle, at least, so they brought a lot of fans. But seeing that stadium filled with a lot of people just kind of made me, I guess, more sad about NCFC not being a thing anymore. It just made me think, it's like, hey, there's people here who at least care about soccer and everything. And it was just like incredibly heartbreaking to see any team just disappear.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start reading some of these that we got. I'm going to start off with Blue Sky. You mentioned Dan Creel's favorites at Vermont Green and Portland Hearts of Pine, their match on the 21st, where magic happened with 6,400. We had Shadow Wolf, who said reaching the USL final with FC Tulsa, and then the Hearts of Pine wasting silverware on purpose in their USL Cup match versus Rhode Island just to lose to AV Alta. Ben Estes said watching one Knox go undefeated at home and then doing the double, the high point was definitely the final, and then the 2-0 win over Eastridge. Sad Wolves, in his own words. Least favorite was club's roster announcement of just so many players from that championship season moving on, which I want to get your guys' thoughts about that. Of one Knox, of they had an amazing team, and then all the players that you circled as, yep, that's the main reason they won, except for a couple, a lot of them end up going not just elsewhere, but interleague.
I mean, I caveat that they've got 9 guys back that you're like, yeah, they're probably starters. But when you're thinking about Kempis Tequila going to Omaha, Sean Lewis going to Tormenta, those were identity pieces, guys that were really at the heart of what Knox was doing in that title run. I think it's really bold for them to say, awesome, thank you for your service. We think that we can replace you internally for probably cheaper salaries. It's a show me what you got season for Knoxville in that sense of, if Goaling doesn't perform, if Garibay is lesser than Sean Lewis was, there's going to be a little bit of egg on their face. I do like the move, and I think that some of these players, like Mark Doyle went over to Ireland. I'd not be surprised to see Hoagley get a step up to the USL Championship. Stuart Ritchie did that already. So there were a lot of reasons for it, but yeah, fascinating in terms of that big strategy there.
We'll have to see if they can recreate them in the aggregate, if you will. But it is difficult to repeat in USL. That's why it's always impressive how well Omaha has been at maintaining that level of success throughout their many seasons in the league as well. But yeah, I mean, that really has to be kind of a gut punch for a lot of the fans to basically celebrate the championship that they've won. And then within 2 weeks, a lot of that team is already departed. It kind of reminds me of when the Marlins would win the World Series and then immediately have a fire sale for their entire roster. It doesn't take away the title, obviously, but it's kind of like removes a lot of the luster of, it's like, oh, I didn't really get a chance to celebrate this because now I'm concerned about what is the team going to do when March rolls around.
Next one, Ben Haven says favorite moment was Neil Vignal's goal at minute 120+1 versus Hearts of Pine in the playoff. Being there in person was unreal. Naomi says either the USL Cup win or the 2-0 or 3-0 win versus RIFC. Hartford fan. The entire first half of the Hartford season was the downside. I do love that Hartford finally got their win and just got to celebrate something. I'm just genuinely happy for them. Naomi also says, thank you for covering the league. Like, thank you so much. So thank you, Naomi. We love you. But no, every now and then I think back to Hartford winning it all. And just like we talked about so much about Siaha and just having the arrogance and the not true arrogance. He's like a really nice guy, but just being just so arrogant on the pitch. It's like, that was one of my favorite storylines from this year was Hartford finally getting a monkey off the back.
And I mean, talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like, talk about a team that has been long suffering in the league. Like, if there was any team that needed a trophy more than anyone else that won one in 2025, beside the one that I'm wearing, it was Hartford in terms of USL. Like, it would, for a team that had just so much, I guess, turnover of managers and the fans that just stuck through that team through thick and thin, to finally be rewarded with silverware is just like, you have to be happy for them.
Yep, 100%. Then, and the fact that they kind of ended the regular season on a bit of a downturn and flashed out in the playoffs, the fact that they got the job done in the Edgar Cup, that's awesome. That's exactly why this tournament is there.
Yeah, let's see. We got Justin Chat actually. Soccer Night in Detroit says Detroit City's comeback versus Phoenix Rising being down 2-0 and the 1-0 upset of Lou City in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals. Fun moments for them. Least favorite, the Trevor James departure saga. Lots there with Trevor James, but Detroit had a bizarre year where someone on Reddit said their least favorite part was Danny Dicchio getting extension, which again, just bizarre year for Detroit. But they also had some really fun moments, like knocking down a loose City, which talk about being a bogey team.
I will just go back to that Phoenix game. It was away at Phoenix, and I think it was 3 goals after the 85th minute. Maybe the game of the year for me of just absolute madness. That was kind of Detroit's MO at their best, of actually being able to score goals, showing us some of the progressive kind of soccer that we've never really seen from Detroit City. It kind of comes on under the cloud of Trevor James leaving. There is a contingent of that fan base that's less excited about Dicchio. I think they've been really ambitious this offseason, so I'm excited to see Maxi back, Aiden Stanley go in. But yeah, kind of as I said with One Knox also, put up or shut up year of you've made these bold choices. It's got to pay off at some point.
And it comes in a year where Detroit has announced and is going to be breaking ground on a brand new stadium coming out in the future, which is massive. It actually leads me into the segue of another comment I saw on the Reddit, I think from a Rhode Island fan, who said their favorite moment was just walking into Center Bank Stadium for the first time. Just like anytime you watched it on broadcast, it just looks like a cool setting right there on the river. It just looks like a really awesome standpoint, which has made it why it was all the more funnier that their least favorite moment was all the subsequent 0-0 or 0-1 games that they saw in the venue that season.
USL, the USL Show Kids season co-host Brett Molnix says in the 11 Jaeger Cup PK win versus Birmingham, and get the USL getting mad at the Brickyard Brigade for flipping the bird too much, and least favorite not making the playoffs on the final day, just an absolute gut punch. Soccer 9 Detroit mentions Kobe Hernandez Foster. I don't want to talk about it. It's fine. We chose Edwin Lasso over Kobe. It's all right. I'm not bitter.
I will take that as a segue that I did when I retweeted the share your moments and/or questions. We got a set of questions from friend of the show, Andy from Orange and Black Soccercast. And basically, what player from the 2025 season were you most disappointed in? I think there's a very good argument that Edwin Lasso is on that list.
He got a move to a top flight club in Colombia, in which did they watch?
I will say is he was actually very good with Tulsa, and that just went away last year.
I don't know. The whole thing was bizarre. None of it made sense, but it's all right. It's okay. That now I can just laugh because there's finally someone up there with Mackie Jop for being the worst player I've ever seen.
I will throw out a couple other candidates of basically any defender Westchester signed. I think you could just make a case for most of them, and that's valid. Personally, in terms of guy that I had expectations for, Ollie Bassett not doing the thing for Tampa Bay is so upsetting. That track record with Atletico Ottawa, I thought he was really going to hit. And I think the decision to move on for Robbie Nielsen kind of put those hopes to the side. But there's a player in there somewhere, and I'm excited to see where he goes next.
Ollie Bassett and what has happened with Nate Worth. just in general with Tampa Bay, that was just those were two that definitely come to mind for me.
Worth is so interesting because when he was at Tulsa getting the national team call-ups, you really felt like there was going to be something. And it's this change in regime at both places, right? Tulsa changes general manager and coach. Tampa Bay goes through the same thing. He's going to be in a better situation back with Red Bulls too now on a permanent basis. But at this stage, and when you're in that window where development is everything, it couldn't have played out worse for him in practice.
A couple more before we kind of wrap it up. Favorite, and just in general, we got so many Pittsburgh comments on the Reddit, so I'm just going to lump in Pittsburgh had a great time this year, but they hate how it ended with Bob Lilly. Like that was kind of everybody with Pittsburgh said championship good, Bob Lilly leaving bad, pretty much with the caveat of they like Robbie Vincent. They like Rob Vincent a lot. They just don't like how it ended with Bob Lilly. But favorite says Pittsburgh winning the USL title in an upset. Least favorite, Roro Lopez receiving a red card in the final match of his career. That is upsetting. I will also say weirdly felt fitting. I know he wasn't a red card accumulator, but I don't know. Something just felt right.
And the way that it was kind of just like a straight up violent act, you do love to see it. Like if you're going to get thrown out of your final game, you got to make it worth it. And it's not the way you would have wanted that career to end, but Roro had a terrific season and he set the table for bigger things for Sacramento in a lot of ways. And he'll still be there anyway as I think some sort of youth academy type coach. So love that.
Let's see. Charleston Hosalandri's goal against Phoenix from midfield made them lose their voice. The worst was obviously the penalties against Rhode Island. So there was that.
Yeah.
Tulsa fans said my least favorite moment was losing the PKs. My favorite thing was literally everything else, which is fair. I mean, I will say on the Tulsa side, you obviously want to win the championship at home. I mean, look, that atmosphere was incredible and it was a lot of fun. I will say the game winner by Stefan Lukic in the game before that, or not the game before that, 2 games before that,
First
in
round,
the 120 plus win might have hit harder than crack. So I would just bottle that moment.
I mean, that entire game that they played against New Mexico, it's the most dominant performance of the season and maybe ever in the playoffs. You can't write it up better than that. And the fact that that community really wrapped their arms around FC Tulsa, everything about this year was awesome. And it's a building block for 2026.
I'm not sure if we had seen it anywhere in our comments or anywhere on Reddit, but I'd be very curious to know what Louisville fans' perspective would be on the year. Like on the field in the regular season, they were arguably the most dominant regular season team that we had ever seen. And then to bow out in the playoffs in the manner that they did had to be like one of the largest kind of just fall on your face moments in, I guess, USL playoff history. That I'd be very curious how this season is kind of remembered in their, recent memory and then kind of moving forward.
There was a contingency that once again wanted Danny Cruz fired, which they are just certifiably not ball knowers. That if you said Danny Cruz out at any point, I just immediately disregarded your opinion.
Danny Cruz is like diving into a swimming pool of the Philip Goodrum transfer money, completely unbothered by the haters.
Which, again, I want to throw out there that Lexington is – I'm not saying Lexington has not signed a CBA. However, I do have a personal headcanon that the Lexington GM is sliding their owner a paper that says this is the CBA, but it's just another $100,000 transfer fee. That's just my personal headcanon.
I hope they do it again. Like the Jacker thing is not real from what I understand, but it would have been funny if it was.
I'm going to say it on here because I said it on every social media. Someone let Brooks Thompson cook. I understand them.
You and me both, man. We both think that Brooks Thompson is the best goalie on that roster.
Someone give him a chance for the love. Let's see. There was a couple of others that made me laugh. And the one that was Phoenix Rising. This one was my favorite one. Favorite fighting back from so many 2+ goals down. Least favorite going down 2+ goals many times. Just made me laugh.
I guess to give at least honorable and dishonorable mention for my favorite teams to wager on throughout the year. Thank you, One Knoxville, for being excellent at home every season, guaranteeing that I could get not only wins, but you guys under 2.5 goals. That was just week in, week out, fantastic. Westchester, I'm very sorry that I had to fade you so much, especially in live games when you would take a lead and then find a way not to walk away with 3 points in the end. But yeah, two ends of the wagering spectrum, if you will.
Any others that kind of come to mind for us from this year? No. Yeah, honestly, I kind of reading what other people think about their team going forward. I know, like, I've seen a lot of Charleston fans are like, everything's on fire. We're all dying. Like, it's all falling apart because, Cal Jennings not there, MD Meyer, Aaron Malloy. Now there's Juan David Torres, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also their roster is still disgustingly good. That I think they're just fine. But that's one of those things. Also good. Look at Oakland, where they made a bold choice to move away from Benny Philauber, where he really stabilized things to the point that I was thinking that what he was doing was sustainable with a possibly better roster, which Oakland, there was an Oakland fan that just mentioned how much they sold the Coliseum for game one, and then mentioned just Jurgen Damm and everything that comes with him. So that was mentioned as well. But Oakland was very bullish, as they kind of always are, and they said it worked well in Loudoun. So why don't we just give Ryan his favorite, Ryan Martin his favorite pieces from Loudoun and just kind of let him cook here? And I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's like, what if you took a team that made the playoffs, took 4 of their 5 best players, and then gave them Danny Trejo and the reigning Golden Boot winner in Peter Wilson? That, to me, sounds like a very good setup for the Roots to be kind of awesome and at a minimum fun to watch.
There's a conversation there, though, of choosing Florian Velo over Panos Amanarkis at that number 10. I'm interested in that.
I think it dates back to Panos kind of not wanting to associate with anything that's ever touched Loudoun, just given the experience he had there. So more of a Panos not wanting it. But Velo knows the system. He brings that drifting ability to connect everything through the middle. He'll be a good fit there.
I'm trying to think of anything else that I was having fun with. Oh, on the Super League side, I'm honestly loving that Lexington is just good on the Super League side. After spending all the money that they did, I'm glad that they're also a fun team to watch and they're really good. I don't love the way they're handling their head coach situation. I think it's really gross, but I've talked about that on this program before, so I'm not going to do it again. But I am glad that Lexington is good on the Super League side after spending all the money.
I was not here for the post-Hemi move show. And you guys covered it very astutely. It's going to be fascinating to see what this team looks like and whether Kosuke Kimura changes things up. Lexington didn't struggle into the break, but there were a couple of matches where you could tell teams, whether they were marking the pivot, the way they were pressing, almost started to figure out how can we slow Lexington down. I'd love to see either a signing or some tactical changes to address that under the new management. That team is a constant object of fascination for me, though. Just watching what's effectively the Super League Galacticos every week is wild.
Puerta was mentioned in chat, where I love what Sporting Jacks has done going for that super local talent. And I'm kind of loving that. I mean, yes, they've made good signings with Rito and others, but they're doing it again on the championship side of going towards local college talent. And I'm really interested to see if it works the same way on the championship side as it has the Super League side. Because if their championship side is as fun as their Super League side right now, I am pumped.
Yeah, I'll have my predictions for the year thing on Backheeled next week. I kind of am taking the opposite stance for Jacksonville. So if they want that to change, they should make some better signings in the next 6 to 7 days.
Good. This is a challenge for you, Jacksonville.
Just anyone in Jacksonville, if you're listening. Yeah, no pressure, but.
Anything else? We good? Awesome. How about some final thoughts of 2025? John?
Yeah. Well, one, I feel like end of the year is a good time to say, had a blast podcasting with you guys. And thank you to anybody who listens to us ramble. I think that's a little bit insane, but hey, love to have an audience. Boy, I'm kind of in this weird in-between work mode of I've had a nice stretch of time off, but the day I go back, I have to travel to Cedar Rapids, Iowa for meetings. And when I checked the weather in Cedar Rapids this morning, it was like, feels like -15. So I'm not looking forward to that.
Oh, ooh.
You know what? Des Moines, awesome. Been there once or twice, had a good time. Everything I've heard about Cedar Rapids is the opposite. So if you are a listener who knows something good about that part of Iowa, please let me know.
Is there a USL League 2 team in Cedar Rapids? Could we get someone just to
That's a great question. They've got minor league hockey or developmental hockey, I want to say, but I don't know about the soccer.
I'm looking it up right now. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, echo again what John said. Thank you, everyone who has listened and interacted, shared any of our episodes or videos, interviews throughout the entire year. It's always so much fun to be with you guys on Tuesday nights, just to recap the week that was, all the jokes and the laughs, and also all the very important topics that has happened that we've covered over the season. I can't thank everyone enough to listen to everything that we have to say. Yeah, I guess for a few other end of year wrap up stuff, I ended with 483 miles run in 2025, which is sadly less than what I did last year. So that's at least a mark for me to try and surpass in 2026. And yeah, if you haven't seen John's recent article where he recaps all 75 films that he saw in 2025, definitely give that a read. I got to 12 2025 releases this year, so I wasn't quite at that number, but I was able to add in 2 more from my recent flight across the country. So still fantastic year for film, and I'll be posting at least my Letterboxd ranking on Blue Sky at some point.
Yeah, my whole MO in life is like, when I have an interest, I just have to go full sicko mode with it. So you're seeing the consequences of that.
Let's see. I think I've watched a total like 3 movies this year.
Which is normal. Yeah.
I'm just not a movie person. My in-laws are movie people, and they started running through all of the Christmas movies they had watched since Thanksgiving when we last saw them. And they were like, "Have you guys watched any Christmas movies?" And my wife just kind of side eyes me and was like, "No, we've been watching bowl games."
Hey, much respect to that.
Hey, the Pop-Tart Bowl is an establishment. Dang it.
I didn't know that there was like a Cheez-It night going on.
Yeah, that's the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. And I did appreciate, Kaylor, your at least post on Blue Sky wishing me a very good day from Saturday. I was the only person in the MGM Sportsbook watching ECU play Pittsburgh in the Military Bowl at 7 a.m. West Coast time, and I was shocked that they were open. Actually, no, I probably shouldn't have been shocked, but I was the only person there.
That rules.
Unironically, my wife has gone, I think she has gone 11 for 12 in bowl game predictions by purely me telling her a mascot name and saying, which one are you rooting for? Which I told her, I was like, we're going to get you in March Madness bracket because you are incredible at this. The only one that she did not, the only one that she picked ECU to win, but it wasn't because she likes Pirates more. She said she met one person from Pittsburgh and she hated them, so she could never root for for the Panthers. So I was like, all right.
Well, I mean, she did better than me. I didn't pick us to win that game for entering it.
That's your self-doubting Spurs DNA showing right there.
Let's see. For me, yeah, no, just thanks to everybody. This year has been absolutely unreal. People talking to us, people interacting with us, and everything that comes along with it. It shocks me when we went to Tulsa and somebody said my name, and I was like, why do you know me? I don't think I mentioned it on here. Owen Dom's family might be the nicest people ever. When people would offer you the shirt off their back, Owen's Dom quite literally offered me his jacket because he thought I looked cold, and he was like taking off his jacket to give it to me. So like the nicest.
You did look cold, to be fair, but yeah.
There's a reason why I bought the FC Tulsa hoodie. I was indeed very cold. But no, it's been incredible to talk ball this whole year, everything that comes with it, the good and the bad. It's been great to build a following and continue a following with this. And for the reason that you guys keep listening, we don't know, but we do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to us. For a final thought for me, tomorrow we are driving up to Cincinnati, which is going to be really exciting. I haven't seen my mom in 2 years, so we get to go see her. So I'm super excited to go see her again, and so we're pumped to head up that way. I know it's going to be a little cold, but I can live with that. So yeah, I'm pumped. So
underrated city.
What anything else? We all good? All good?
All good. That's
all
it.
Right. Well,
2025.
Yeah, that was it for 2025. And for the first time and final time of 2025, here's Alan.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.